We have a special guest. We have two special guests, actually. May I introduce Stephen Alexander. He is the manager of Theater 33 here on campus. Please welcome Stephen. Our second guest, who is our speaker, is Marina McClure. She's the guest director and guest faculty at Willamette University. Marina is the guest director of Theater 33 productions of Revolt, she said. Revolt Again, a play written by Alice Birch. The play was the Royal Shakespeare Company's exclusive 2014 hit and is a series of vignettes that delves headfirst into our modern debates about language, behavior, and forces that shape the women of the 21st century. Revolt serves as a call to arms to modern battles that impact us all. Marina received her MFA in choreography at the California Institute of the Arts, Los Angeles, California. Marina creates emotionally charged theater, opera, and spectacles by fusing striking visual design and physical performance. Marina heads the multidisciplinary art lab, The New Wild, and teaches directing at the National Theater Institute. She has quite a few credentials. We're very pleased to have her. Marina, it's all yours.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much. Thanks to you all. I'll just correct the one thing. I wish I had an MFA in choreography, but I don't. I have an MFA in directing from CalArts. But I do have extensive physical training and a background in dance. And I would love to go back in time and also get that choreography degree.
I'll do a quick correction as well. We have I'm from Willamette University, and Theater 33, which you may have heard of before, has recently been taken under the wing of Willamette University. They're a play development company that works in the summertime. But what Marina and I are working with is the Willamette University theater program itself. So same place, different name, if you will. We're the ones that have been there all the time and teaching theater and doing shows, and Theater 33 is joining us as a part of a full year season now. So, and then we also have brochures for this. So, I'll just give a little context, if you will, about why Marina is here. We at Willamette University, one of the things that we love to do the most for the kids, I mean, you see the universities all over, and they may have a season of love, or they may specialize in musicals or different things. One of the things that Willamette University specializes in is bringing guest artists to the students. Part of the reason we do that is to be able to give the students real-world experiences so that they're actually working with working professionals that are in the real world. So the actors are not going to just have the people that are stuck on campus all the time doing the teaching, that we can actually have professionals from the world that come in, and to have that actor-director relationship that's going to mirror what happens when they leave, where they don't have classes. And the same with designers. All of the production people, the design students, the technical students, the crew get to work with a variety of different lighting designers, set designers, and sound designers. We always have at least one guest director every year, and Marina was the one that we brought in. If anyone happened to see last year, we did a solo performance. That's another thing that we do with solo performances, called Letters from Home. Did anyone happen to see Letters from Home? It was a one-woman show about her family and Vietnam. Is that correct?
Cambodia.
Cambodia. Thank you. Marina was the director of that. She wasn't with us on campus, but we were able to swing her in to this, and she can probably talk to how she found how we connected up together. So, and this one actually, it's not just guest director Marina, but we have a guest that is working for the sound design, one that's doing lighting design, and the person doing set is a guest director and guest faculty member. So actually only the costumer this time around is on faculty. And of course, there's the other big reason for the guest artist program that we have is to prevent our own faculty from burning out. And so that the audiences can see something different, because you don't always want to see the set that's made by the same person over and over again. So it really flips things around, and we try to find different designers that can work with different things. So so that we're really happy to bring Marina. And how did we find out about you, by the way?
I think it was through Letters from Home.
Oh, was it?
And also that the number of relationships between alumni, I think alumni of Willamette and alumni of CalArts, so the California Institute of the Arts, which is down in Valencia or North Los Angeles. Yeah, so Jonathan Cole, who's the director of the chair of the program at Willamette, had come down and had seen my thesis production when I was in graduate school at CalArts. Another play by a strong female writer called Purgatory in Ingolstadt, which is written by a woman named Mary Louise Fleischer, who has a really, really interesting story if you want to look that up at some time. So it's really exciting to be here with Willamette and the students making this piece. So I thought today we would talk a little bit about the play itself to give you all some context, and then hope that you'll come see it and that you'll engage in dialogue with us. You'll have extra special knowledge that I think most audience members will not. They'll arrive and just be dropped on the planet. And this is a very robust, energetic, muscular, intense planet, although it's only an hour long. So you can come, have a great time, and then head out into the world. So as Drew mentioned, it's a play that was originally conceived and commissioned in 2014. The playwright is a young female playwright, British, named Alice Birch. And you can see from the title, Revolt, period. She said, period. Revolt again, period. That this is a writer who's really interested in language, syntax, and how language can transmit a story. So I became really interested in this play because of the relationship that Alice Birch is cultivating between language, the contemporary existence, particularly of women, but I think you can't talk about women without talking about men and talking about non-binary, because we all inhabit the earth together and we're all a part of the systems together. But this is written in a lens to try to illuminate particularly the lived experience of women and non-binary people. And she is using language, image, and a really clear invitation to the actors to use their own bodies and their own spirits to create the piece. So we'll kind of like go through what that actually looks like, so it's not so esoteric for you all. But I think it's just quite extraordinary that, like, from the very get-go, the moment you literally pick up the script, you know from the way that the title is constructed that this is demanding a particular relationship to your ear, so to listen, the oral quality, and then it's also demanding a particular relationship to speaking. That the task of this play to speak will be challenging, There are 3 periods inside the title, and the title is quite tight. So it's a muscular endeavor to get the words out. So the play was written and first produced in the UK in 2014, and Alice Birch is a playwright that I think stands on the shoulders of the lineage from playwrights like Gertrude Stein at the turn of the century and into the 20s that are using language and image in similar fashions. And then through to some of the more contemporary British writers that are a part of a movement called in-your-face theater. So this is the lineage that playwrights like Sarah Kane and Carol Churchill belong to. So sort of feisty, vigorous women writing with an ear towards language and an ear towards upending the way that we think about bodies in space, stories, and the violence of certain aspects of our society against other members of our society. So it's really exciting to pick up the play and visually see how Alice Birch is in conversation with those playwrights across time. And that's something that really resonates with me as an artist, because when I think about making any work, but also when I think about teaching and the teaching that I'm doing here at Willamette, I often am reminded of all of my different teachers and how I stand upon their shoulders and how I take, it's kind of an interesting relationship to think about it this way, but I take from them. My teachers have given me such amazing training and amazing ways to open up my mind. I take from them, but then I make that my own. It comes out my own. And so I think it's really exciting. I invite my students to do the same inside my classes. Steal everything that you want from me. Just go make it your own. And so I can see how Gertrude Stein was not a teacher, a formal teacher for Alice Birch. Sarah Kane, neither. She's passed away in the 90s. But that this is someone who had tuned their ear to the generations of female writers and to the way that language has been used and manipulated across time. So I entered working with the script from that perspective, that understanding. This play is different than most plays and most scripts that you may encounter. Okay, I'm gonna lie. I'm gonna tell a fib and then I'll undo it. There are no characters in this play. There are totally characters in this play. But the way that the play is laid out is in 4 acts. And the characters for the 4 different scenes that are in the first act are not specified. There's no names given, and in fact, there's no designation of who says what line. There's just a dash and some text, a dash and some text, a dash and some text for the whole scene. So Alice Birch, in creating this, has created a puzzle and a map that she is asking me, the director, to engage with deeply. And from that very, from that sort of saucy layout of saying, hey, I'm not going to give you all the tools in the way that you think or that you may expect to be given. She is teaching me from the beginning that I need to listen and I need to look, and that I need to use my ears and my eyes to decode and understand who is speaking and why, and what my vision is for who those characters are and who those actors may be. She gives an indication that this play could be done well with 6 actors. The play professionally in its premiere in the UK and in its premiere in New York City a couple years ago off Broadway, they used 4. Maybe that was for budgetary reasons, maybe it was for artistic reasons. But she says that the play can be done well with 6. I think she's right. So we cast 6. And I felt heading into auditions that I was given incredible license to meet the actors here at Willamette, see where their talents were, see where their energies were, and decide how to construct who are the characters that are present in each of these scenes, and how can my actors bring their bodies, their spirits, their energies to kind of really help tell a story that's meaningful for these, for these young people on campus that are grappling with issues that are really present inside the play. So that's exciting, but it's also a little annoying because it's like, couldn't you just tell me who the characters are? But what I understand from that is that it's not just a gimmick. It's not just it's not just Alice Birch being annoying to be annoying. It's that she's teaching me that that's the way that I need to engage you all when you come into the theater. That there's a level of tuning our ears to the language and to really listening to who is present in the scene to determine that. And so she's asking us to do that from the outset. It's not that I'm sure you could do this play with 100 people. I don't know what that would do. If you had literally 100 different people read all the lines in order in this scene, would that be legible? Or would it just sort of be weird to be weird? I think it's probably the latter. That's my bias. So I'm looking at, okay, how can I make the thing that she's put on the page really legible for the audience? So that's where there are lots of clues in the language. There are lots of clues to tell me, okay, this is a 2-person scene. This is a 3-person scene. This is a 4-person scene. Or, I could create this scene with 2 main characters, and then I could create a bunch of other characters that are kind of in the background, living, doing tasks, and make that really visually inviting as a way of telling the story. So, Act 1, there are no characters. There's just text on a page to decode and to figure out where you are, what's the setting, who are these people, and what's the drama. Act 2, there are characters. And they are listed at the beginning, so that's why I said I was going to lie. These characters, some of them have names, Dinah and Agnes, and then 2 of them don't, Man and Grandma. Then when we get to Act 3, the page is chaotic. There are columns of text that are inviting and demanding a rigorous engagement with both the visual and the oral. So in the author's notes, it says explicitly, I'll just read it instead of remembering it from my mind. Nope. Act 3. The line between actor and character can be paper thin here. At some point, the actors will have to be in more than one scene at the same time. It is okay to find that difficult. Thanks, Alice. And it is, but it's also tremendous. And so what she's getting at is that by the time we've gone through these scenes in Act 1, these vignettes, into Act 2, where we have some real characters, into Act 3, the act of living, the act of speaking, the act of showing up in a place to send your energy and communicate something is becoming more difficult, is becoming almost too challenging. And so the script is a map for that kind of emotional thrust. So great, I have some permission to allow it to be difficult. It is. But my task is to still make this experience as legible as possible for the audience and for the actors in order to make it legible for the audience. By the time we arrive at Act 4, we're back to little dashes and a set of text. Act 4 is 1.5 pages long. That's it. And so I listen to that, I look at that, and I hear that the rhythm is pushing me towards something that has this like diminished quality. And so that's the sort of journey that we've been on, is to determine, okay, have we arrived in a space where it's just actors and no longer characters by the end of the play? And I think the answer is like yes and no. So there'll be moments where certain actors may have revealed themselves to be fully just the actors on the stage that have been playing characters. And there'll be a couple of actors that are still with the residue of the characters that they've played, bringing forward into this final moment. So that's the way that the play is sort of laid out. The other thing, cheeky, that Alice Birch puts at the top of this, there shouldn't be any set. The play should be performable without any props. Ideally, the play should be performed by a cast of 6. Okay. So there shouldn't be any set. What does that mean?
And we'd already hired a set designer, so.
Right. But also like, that is again, the author being cheeky and the author being like, okay, do I really mean that there's no set? Like, well, anything is a set. This is a set. This floor, this carpet is a set. There's no such thing as a non-space. Like, there's always going to be architecture, there's always going to be color, there's always going to be the reality of the room that you're in. And if this author seems to be really interested in a space where we are trading upon the reality of a character and an actor, well, that tells me that they're interested in this sentence, there shouldn't be any set, is telling me that they're interested in that as well in the space. So I don't take it super literally that she means that there shouldn't be any set, but I do take it to say you should be really thoughtful about the space that this occurs in, and that the goal is for the audience to hear the language. That this is not a play where you want the scenic to overwhelm the bodies that are in space and the language that's coming out. And so I'm like, all right, Alice, cool, I got you. And so the journey that we've been on has been to really find that balance of what is a space that can capture the essence of, here are a bunch of actors that are playing characters that are engaged in an activity of the muscular speaking, the muscular engagement with language as a system that ends up being coded on our bodies, that language impacts how we think and how we move, how we love, how we hate, all of those different things. That needs to be primary, and that the space needs to enable that to happen. So Act 1 has a series of titles to contextualize the 4 different scenes in it. Act 1, Scene 1, revolutionize the language, invert it. Okay. So this is a scene, this is basically a sex scene. It's between 2 people, and they are engaged in questions of wordplay and how the wordplay can both feel really exciting and enticing, but also can feel really limiting and also feel really scary. So they engage with words like, oh, spread your legs. And the other character is like, ooh, I don't like the word spread. The word spread sounds like margarine. That's not right. So it's this very clever wordplay, and this idea of revolutionizing the language, invert it, and then hearing that the characters are constantly in this situation. I don't know how to do this at the mic. I have to do it physically. They're like constantly in this situation of like, do I like this? Oh no, wait, that sounds weird. Okay, so there's this constant like back and forth that's happening. And so our job is to make sure that we're training your ears to hear all the funky things that are present in language and all the ways that we use language in ways that we think are probably very quotidian or mundane, but that actually for different people, if you stop and think about it, you're like, wow, the language is giving us specific images, or is maybe contributing to a sort of stuckness, particularly for women. So the sort of spread and margarine example is not gender specific and it's just silly. But throughout the play, each of the characters and the actors are engaged in struggles that have to do with trying to communicate meaning and trying to upend the way that language is used and the way that language maybe holds people back, holds people in. So that's just that little example. And I love that at the very beginning that title says invert it. And to me that was an invitation to really think about, okay, so we have a sex scene. Does anyone want to see a sex scene in the theater? I don't know about that. Maybe. But also, that's not really, I think, the role of either of what Alice Birch is looking for, but also like to create that piece here with students is not really what we're all about. So again, it's about listening to the language. And so the way that I've been working with the actors is to figure out how to, like essentially how to deliver the radio play of this that allows for us to say, hey audience, come on in, tune your ears. This is going to be a play where you want to really pay attention. You want to listen. And through the listening, you'll be able to engage in this question of how am I using language? How has language impacted the choices that I've made subconsciously or consciously across my life? And so that's what we're doing. And we're having a bunch of fun doing that as well. So, yeah.
Marina, how do you block something that is about language, by the way?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So, yeah, I like always bristle at the word blocking. Is everyone familiar with that term, or should I explain it? Explain it? Okay. So in the theater, some traditions call staging blocking. So the director's job is to, in a little model like this or on paper, be like, this person crosses over to here, and then they say some lines, and then this person crosses over to here, and that's the blocking, to know like XYZ, moves over here, or these are the entrances and the exits. For me, I understand that this play is calling for a really rhythmic engagement. It's about language. It's about periods and commas and stops and dots and spaces and overlapping text and columns of text, right? So many different things. So it's asking for a more rhythmic engagement than simply doing that kind of blocking or staging ahead of time. So the work that I do with the students, we train, kind of like you would for like football practice. Like we do calisthenics at the top of rehearsal every day, getting techniques in the body of these 6 performers that sync their minds, their breath, and their capacity to mimic gesture. So they are at the top of rehearsal, we develop this language through this system. I'm very aware of the irony of building a system when the play is asking for us to just tear down systems. I'm aware. But we build this system and this shared language so that then they can sort of seamlessly, telepathically, through their breath and body, communicate what the play is. So the staging is somewhat organic. And it's kind of like in this particular moment, if you came into rehearsal, you might be like, are you improvising the whole thing? And I would be like, no, we're not. But we're in that point where we're 2.5 weeks into rehearsal, where there still is a lot of improvising going on, so that we are capturing, essentially we're capturing the genius of each of these 6 young performers, their conscious genius and also their unconscious genius of like, I feel like this in this moment, so I have to express myself through the body like this. Okay, wonderful. Now that they've brought that into the space, now we can deal with this gesture and this line, and now we can consciously put that on a particular moment. So it is a bit, which is why I was delighted to say, I was delighted by the error that I have a MFA in choreography, because the work that we're doing is very, very choreographic in terms of its staging. Yeah. So the staging will be incredibly precise when you see it, but inside the process right now, it's we're still in that development phase. So it's like half precise and half improvised and messy. And it's delightful. The actors will come up and at the end of rehearsal, they'll be like, oh, I just need more of this thing. That's what I learned today. And I'm like, yep, great. Can't wait to see what you do tomorrow to bring that in and to codify that a little bit more. Yeah. Great. Do you have other questions? No.
Yeah, I kind of do.
Great. I want to ask y'all questions too.
So Marina came in for 2 days in December, I believe it was,
2
to
days.
audition. This is sort of kind of a me question, I suppose, because I have to work the administration of things. So by the time that was for auditions. So by the time she was done with auditions, what it was that me wanted to do was what I do with all the plays. If I get a Noel Coward play, I want to say, oh, okay, so let's see. The actor that plays the male is going to be Bradford, and the one that plays the female is going to be Jane, and we'll make a cast list, and then I get scripts and I hand them out. But instead, we have a play which is sort of, in some ways, a poem. It looks like a poem in a lot of ways. They suggest 4 actors. The next thing I know, I hear that there's going to be 6 actors, and I think, well, how do we let these people know this, and how are we going to how am I gonna get the scripts to them if we don't know what's going on? So Alice Birch puts a revolution for me as well, because I have to change the way that I do my administration just in getting scripts out. But you came in for 2 days. You saw all of our actors. You chose a few of those actors. And then in the meantime, between when you came back 6 weeks later or so, you had to have something prepped for them. How is it that you knew the 6 people that were going to be able to do the gymnastics of language? And I guess the other part of it is, can you predict what they're going to do before you get here, or do you have to figure the script out when you land on the ground?
Yeah, great. Okay, so there's a few things to think about. I have to do a rigorous amount of preparation as a director ahead of time. So I have to do all that, like script analysis and more, that I shared just here, bringing you through the structure of the play. I need to understand the energy of the characters that are in a scene. It's very difficult it's very high level for an actor to be able to shift their center of gravity. People are oftentimes have a greater connection to the ground, or to the second half of their body in the way that they move through space, or sort of are more lighter on their feet, and sort of people that maybe move from their head or their ears or their shoulders. You can kind of see this if you I mean, we could do an analysis of everyone just sitting here to be like, oh, okay, that one's a lighter person, that one's a stronger person. And this language, light and strong, is part of a technique by a French choreographer, Laban, and it's just sort of a measure of like where is the center of gravity in the body. It's very difficult for a young actor to be able to really play things that are very outside their lived experience of their energetic body. It's what the training is to be able to be that true chameleon, someone who can show up and can be like heavy and strong versus someone who like floats around the world like this, right? Like you want to make sure that the energy that's present in the given scenes matches what the actors can actually do. My task is to identify not just who's talented and not just who like fits a role, but who can actually like do the task that is necessary for being inside the scene. So I don't know any of these actors because I'm a guest, and this is literally my first time to Oregon. So I saw the people in the room, and in this audition, we did some of that physical training that I knew would be really important for bringing this script to life. So I could see their bodies in space, I could see how they thought with their bodies, and I could figure out what their energies were. 3 of the actors were on study abroad or some other thing with their time, and so they sent in videos. And so 3 of the actors were cast personally in the room, and 3 of them were cast by a video audition. This is increasingly common today in the theater world, in New York, in California, here in Oregon. It's great. It's amazing. I love it. It's convenient for the actors. It gives you access to people that you may not have had access to. It's hard to be, it's hard for actors to come in for a short-term audition. So it's amazing, but it doesn't give you the fullest window into somebody's energy. So I knew I wanted to cast these 3 actors, and the department had recommended them, and I was like, yep, that's a great decision. But I wasn't able to really, really solidify the casting until I had all of the humans in the room together. Again, because the script is saying, is this the character or is this the actor? I really needed to know, like, who are these actors and how are they going to enliven and bring the script forward. So that was exciting, and I'm super proud of the ensemble that we amassed, and I think it's like it blows my mind with joy every day. It's so exquisite. Yeah. So the additional task of like getting a script together. I'm just going to show you this, and you can kind of see it. That's kind of all that matters. But like my script is highlighted. I never do it like this. This is also like very different for me. I usually was telling Stephen, I usually type out a script myself, and that's a way that I learn it and I learn the rhythm. I tried to do that with this script, and it made me like full of rage because it's so difficult. It's so difficult to format, and I also was having like such a hard time tracking who is speaking, who is doing what. So the only way that I could really make my way through this script was actually to just keep reading it out loud to myself, and then like I made a recording of myself reading the script, and then I just listened to that recording a lot. I am not an actor. It's not a good recording, but it was really helpful as a way of understanding it, and it was different. It was just really different than writing out the script, sending it to the printer, etc. So my script, this is Act 3. It's got some columns going on. And it's highlighted in a bunch of different colors. That's really all you need to see. There's like 6 different colors. And this was just a way that the audience or the actors and I like determined this is how we're going to keep track of who's saying what. Like, we're just going to grab crayons, we're going to grab highlighters, and you're going to be purple and you're going to be orange. And that way we're keeping track of who says what at any given time. And we knew that we would just, if we made a mistake, just would go back and print the page again and like re-highlight. So it's been a real process, and in all truth, last night was the night that we finally locked in who is saying what for Act 4. We open in a week. Is that right? In a week? It's
week
terrifying.
and a day.
Yeah,
or
it's
two.
terrifying.
Yeah.
But I have all the faith that the work that we've been doing in the room to understand the rhythm, the intention, the story, that all of that is really landed on these actors and that they're going to be able to deliver it. And the other part of it is that with this level of attention to the language and the rhythm, they have to memorize the whole script. They can't just memorize their own lines. They have to know exactly what's happening in every single minute, every single second, so that they can intersect, so that when two people are speaking over there and this actor over here can throw their line into space, draw focus for a moment, and then seed the focus back over here. So it's a little bit of staging a dance and a little bit of staging a radio play. Yeah. Do y'all have any questions? I would love to hear what your questions are. Yeah, I'm supposed to wait, I think, but I'm very excited by all the hands. Great. It'll give me a chance to drink.
And while they're doing that, I'll let you know the show, it runs it's this month only, from the 20th to the 29th. The 20th is a discounted preview night. The 21st, which is a Friday, we have a gala opening with free food. And there are a couple of weekend matinees as well. I'll leave some of these up here so people can look at them. Or you can always go on the Willamette website, wutheater.com or willamette.edu with the schedule there. The seniors are always $10 a piece for all the shows. Students, if you have any students that want to join, they are at $8. And if I'm not mistaken, what's that? Yeah. Okay. So I'm not mistaken. If I was wrong, then the theater manager would get mad at me, but I'm the theater manager, so I would get mad at myself. So when you do arrive, you have a badge or an ID. Absolutely. So just let the box office people know, or you can call over. You don't have to worry about it too much. I mean, I don't find that people are trying to, like, if someone is stealing your identity on your credit card, they don't go to theater. So, we're not really the big police about that. You can let us know on the phone that you want a student rate, and we might giggle and we'll give you the student rate. So yeah, those are right out there.
You got questions?
The play sounds fascinating. You said it took you a long time to lock in who says what, when. Is it possible to do the play in different ways so that you would lock in 2, 3, 10 different ways?
Yeah. Absolutely. That's exactly what, that's such a great question. Thank you for clarifying it for everybody. I think that's why I think, like, it's a puzzle, but it's not a frivolous puzzle. I think it was the reason that it's like that is to train me to know this is about language on the body, but to also say it's about bringing yourself and your vision to it. So my production is going to be very different than the production that happened in any other city. They had 4 actors. We have 6. When we were recording a radio interview last week, there was a young woman who had just stage managed it in Iowa, and she said they had 5 actors. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. Why 5? I was like trying to figure that out. So yeah, I think, and again, there's no gender breakdown, except to say that the playwright says there should be at least one woman in every scene. Okay. So everybody's play could be different. You could do this with entirely women, and see what happens. Yeah, it would be a lot of different interpretations. And I think what's exciting, though, is that it's not a free-for-all. You would go to those different productions and you would say, oh, I know I'm seeing a production of Revolt. She said Revolt. Just like you would go to see Hamlet and be like, this is Hamlet. I understand this, but it's a different concept at every turn. This play is saying, yeah, you have the freedom to do that. Yeah.
Can I ask, what are they wearing?
They are wearing clothes. Sorry, it was so loud. They are wearing clothes. They're wearing clothes. They're wearing. It was a really interesting collaboration with the costume designer, because there's a series of actions where it feels like, okay, if this is about women and people trying to break free of the structures of language that have been sort of pressing in on them, how is that also true for the clothing that we wear? And so we've been engaged in kind of like figuring out, okay, great, what are the undergarments that like hem things in? Is there a sense of like, I really wish I could take some of this off? How do I take some of it off? So they're wearing normal clothes. But they're definitely engaging with their clothing, and the sort of feeling of being bound by it, yeah.
Thank you for coming. This is so intriguing to me. I love your presentation, and we can tell you're so excited and enthused. Excuse me. I'm looking forward to coming to try to figure out the puzzle that you have given us. I'm thinking this is a puzzle, and I have to put all the pieces together. And I hope it's not like what life is right now, where we're sitting home yelling at the television for something that someone said here, and then somebody over there is saying something.
Yeah.
No, I'm just teasing, but I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for coming and
thank you.
sharing with us.
Yeah, thanks. I think there is a quality that is very now, that is very much like the frustrations that we feel inside our bodies. I thought that I was coming here to direct a play that was like about female rage at the start of 2020, and I was like, oh, cool. Like last year, I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm gonna wanna be doing in January and February 2020. It's like a play about female rage with students in Oregon. This is gonna be amazing. And then like January 2020 is just so different than I thought it would be, like even 6 months ago. And it's exhausting. I'm so exhausted. I'm so exhausted from yelling into spaces at the television and at like all the feeling like this, that like we're just trying to like push things off so that we can breathe. And it turns out that that's actually what the play is about. The number of times that the characters say, I'm so tired, I just wish I could sleep, is really real. But I believe that this play has hope, even though, like full disclosure and being candid, like it is pretty bleak. But it has a mechanism that says we keep going. Like even if we don't have solutions, we keep going. There is still breath at the end of this play. So we will, like for me, my hope is that you don't have to figure out the puzzle. I think you just have to, hopefully I figured out the puzzle and gave it to you. Hopefully you just come to the theater and you feel something, and hopefully we all take an inhale at the end together and we go, okay. And that inhale fills us with enough breath and life that we can walk out and we can keep making the world a little bit better for ourselves and for, all the other humans to follow us. Yeah.
Over here. Recently got something from the Ashland folks, an announcement about the new intimacy director that they hired at Audley, an article on NPR about intimacy direction. I can kind of figure out what it is. My question is, where did this come from, and did we not always have this, and what is the need that we actually have a title and someone who is assigned to deal with those issues?
Yes. So I love Ashland, and I'm so glad. My mentor in my undergraduate, one of my mentors is Nataki Garrett, who was just appointed the new artistic director. So it's really exciting that she's there and taking the next step there. I'm really excited to see their work. So intimacy direction is someone who is trained in both staging intimate moments, and intimate moments could be something as sort of as large as like a sex scene, or some kind of simulated sex on stage, but could also just be moments that are intimate between two people, where it's important acting is a job. Acting is a profession. If you were in the science lab, you wouldn't necessarily press your body up against the other scientist. But as an actor, you're asked to do that. And so the intimacy director is responsible for knowing safe ways to facilitate two professional beings being able to use their bodies in professional ways while also being creative, while also pushing boundaries. And so that was not a job that was sort of codified in the industry until very recently. Either it was that a thoughtful director or a thoughtful choreographer was thinking about that and thinking, oh, you know, Stacy may not feel comfortable putting their body up against Philippe in this moment. I should have a conversation with them to be like, what are you comfortable with? Are you comfortable with just being kissed all of a sudden? Or do you want to like say like, hey, is it okay if I kiss you? Is it okay if I kiss you with my lips fully? Is it okay if I kiss you with tongue, etc., right? So to just put language to like what is going to happen and say, is this okay? Wonderful, let's get to work. So it's a little bit of that, but then it's also to create staging that is repeatable so that no actor who's involved in any of those intimate moments feels in any way that they're being taken advantage of. So it's a really awesome position that's now been codified. There's a few different training organizations and licensing organizations that support that. And we think about it kind of in the same way that you would think about like, well, you wouldn't do like a fight scene without a fight choreographer. So it's in that same kind of vein. I'm not going to chop off someone's head without kind of being like, let's deal with what the instrument is and what the choreography is and make sure that everyone's safe. So it's the same, but for intimacy.
And
Yeah,
we do have an intimacy director for this one. Actually, a former student from Willamette, Amanda Cole, who's now married to the chairman of our department, and she's worked with us before as well.
Yeah, and so the intimacy direction that she's provided for this has been like moral support for me, which is amazing, so that I know that that's taken care of and I can put my efforts and my mind towards other things. I'm of course checking in with my actors, but I know that Amanda's there in case there's ever a question. And then it's just really delightful because now there's two minds on choreographing what this sex scene is or what this intimate moment is. It's going to be so much better, you know. So yeah, that's been really, really exciting. Since the play, you know, since I said like now we're approaching scene one as more of that like radio play, the intimacy is a little less overt than it might have been if we had stayed kind of really rooted to some realistic action. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Karen, and thank you for all the information that you gave us. And at the very beginning, you were talking about description and bringing yourself out and all, and I thought, oh, that just sounds so much like an interpreter for art.
Yeah.
And it just got me into that art, because there's, you know, when you go to an art museum and you see this wonderful art and then someone interprets it's completely different than you, and there it is.
That's totally right. I love that about art, right? Your reaction to it is totally valid. Whatever you feel or think having come seen the play, it's totally valid. Yeah.
My question, in terms of staging, do you see any resemblance with the way silent movies did their way of expressing what they're doing and so forth?
Yeah, I love that. What an awesome question. I think that yes, as an artist, I'm super interested in that, and I would count them as like my teachers way back, that I stand on the shoulders of some of those like expressionistic or surrealistic or just, you know, Charlie Chaplin-esque silent movies, because they're expressing, it's so interesting, they're expressing language through the body. And then, of course, they have the signs, the title cards in between. But that interplay is actually really, really interesting. And then, you know, sort of inside your question, inside your response about the art, what we've done for the set is create a little jewel box, create a essentially like a museum glass case with a little pedestal underneath so that we're looking through and can kind of see the cinema of it or see the art that's inside the case as the characters and the actors try to kind of break out of a structure. But like, they won't. Yeah, or you can come up, it's so small, I'm sorry, and there's no really good way to do it, but you could come up or we could bring it to the back so that you can see the model. And this is just a technique that's really important in the theater, to work with a set designer to build an actual scale model. Build a scale model of the theater and of the set is so much better than a digital rendering. And you can move tiny puppets around inside it, and I can just live out my like doll's house dreams from childhood. It's very funny to look back and be like, oh, those things you do when you're small, they can be part of your career.
Hi, I'm Joel. I have to stand up to demonstrate.
Great. Me too.
Yeah. There was a few years ago, 100 years ago, when I was in drama as an undergraduate, thank you, intimacy direction is pretty important because it's entirely possible to screw up, which I did twice on the same play. I had the title role of Tartuffe in the play Moliere's Tartuffe. Very body play, at least the director perceived it that way. And there was I won't do it to you, Jim, but imagine this lady is standing in front of me, and I'm coming on to her, saying my lines, and I'm lifting her skirt up from the sides, which was the direction. I was, kind of caressing her. And I lifted up the skirt much too high, and her parents were in the audience and found that very distasteful. That we were also, the scene was, one scene was on a French fainting couch, and she was lying back, and then I was supposed to kind of climb on top of her and say the line, "The perfect vessels that heaven has fabricated," and caress her breasts. Well, she was not that well endowed and had placed in some, what we used to call falsies, and they got crooked. And so that made some corrections necessary. The comment that I wanted to make, though, this would be your play that you're doing now sounds like a wonderful exercise for the actors, because they're having to really be creative, and I think there would be a lot of anxiety from the actor's perspective as to, there's no simple blocking, there's no simple character, there's, it's got to be really challenging and a learning experience.
Yeah, that's so right. We still call them falsies, I think, and you'll see some in the play, so it's fun. It's they are bringing their total selves, and it's a creative, generative room. Yeah.
So,
Cool. Of
so
course.
when you do the play differently, with
The next time I do this,
or whomever, does it change the meaning?
Yeah. Okay. It probably does. But Alice Birch is an excellent playwright. And so because of the rigor of the way that she's constructed it, if the director is listening to what she has on the page, the meaning should still be really legible. I think you've messed it up if the meanings are different. But that's my bias. You could arm wrestle me and say, no. Yeah. Thank you all so much. What a joy to chat
Marina,
with you.
we just really appreciate it. I think we better end right now because it's getting a little risque over in that section.
It is. It's getting so risque. But I'm here if anyone has other questions that they want to ask.